Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to Officers Adda 247. In this particular lecture, we will be starting off with the target series for your JAIIB November 2025 examination. This particular series will be helpful for all of you who want to start early and crack this examination in one attempt only, and that is the recommendation, right, from the entire team. That is the only recommendation which we always give, that since the IIBF is creating tough exam papers, we would say, in the final exam of JAIIB, so you must start early, gain the confidence via conceptual clarity, then move on to making notes, along with that revising those notes properly and attempting good amount of mock test. All these things will be done if you will start early. So this particular series will be having a particular format wherein we will be discussing the most important topics from various units. Today we will be starting off with the IFS unit number 1, that is the overview of Indian economy, and here we have good amount of, you can say, important topics. So let's get started. First of all, what is the basic difference between economy and economics? So when we talk about this subject, Indian economy and Indian financial system, we must be very clear in our mind that how it is different from the economics. So economics is the social science which studies the production level, the production capacity, the consumption patterns, and along with that what all income levels are there, plus various economic indicators. So it is a subject. Economics is a subject under the category of social sciences. But when we talk about economy, it is the practical implication of your subject economics. Whatever economics is studying, the practical implication in real time will be the concept of economy. So whenever you read in news that Indian economy is doing well, we do not read the headlines like Indian economics is doing well. No, because economics is a subject. The implication, the practical implication of that particular subject will be categorized as the economy. So Indian economy is growing really well. You can say that we are talking about the economy, but it is under the domain of the subject of economics. Fine. So the particular example will be applicable here also when we talk about the definition. So economy, the system of production, trade and consumption, the basis of country's wealth, will be termed as the economy. But when we talk about economics, simply stated, it will be what? It is the social science that will study the production, distribution, consumption of goods and services, and the final, you can say, production of goods and services will be known as the GDP only. The concept of GDP will be studying in module B, but yes, you must be very clear in your mind that what is the basic difference between the economy and economics domain. So the next important point which we must highlight is the present state of Indian economy. As you know that Indian economy is growing at a good pace, at a decent pace as compared to the other world economies. But when we talk about the numbers, the rankings, they are important for our examination. So the first important number will be the rank of India when we talk about the nominal GDP of the entire globe. So India is ranked at 4th position in the latest report of IMF, which has published the World Economic Outlook report, and therein we can say that by the end of 2025, India will be surpassing the country of Japan to become the 4th largest economy of the world. The aim of Indian government is what? That we should breach the threshold, the benchmark of $5 trillion economy. But right now the numbers are not that high. Right now we are sitting at what? 4.19 US dollar. 5 trillion we will become, but it will take time. Next important number is the GDP when we talk about the comparison with the PPP, that is purchasing power parity. India stands at the 3rd position when we talk about the purchasing power parity scenario across the globe. So these two numbers you must be remembering, because one question has already been asked by the IIBF from here only. Okay, so very important, highly important, I would say. Next, when we talk about the evolution of our Indian economy based on one database, and that database is given by the economist Angus Madison. That is why this particular database is named after him, Angus Madison database. And what does this particular database studies or tells us about the world economies? It will tell you about the GDP numbers, the GDP growth. So the trend is very important when we talk about the study of Angus Madison database. First of all, it will start from 1000 AD till 1600 AD, then 1600 AD to 1700 AD, 1700 AD to 1870 AD, and how the various economies are doing in these particular timelines. So the contribution of India and China in the global GDP, it was what, 50.5% when we talk about the year 1000 AD. Do remember that when we are discussing the data points, do not try to remember them in isolation. Always try to retain the trend, that whether the GDP was rising or it was having a slowdown, whether the GDP numbers are stagnant or they were growing at a good pace. When we talk about 1940s, what was the trend? That is very important. Not only data point, but once you remember the trend, you will make sense out of most of these data points. So Angus Madison database, India, China, it contributed 50.5% of the global GDP in 1000 AD. Then in 1600 AD, the share has gone up. Now it is moving upwards in 1600 AD. If you are sitting in 1600 AD, you will notice that there is a significant growth from 50.5%. Now it is 51.4% when we talk about the contribution of India and China combined together towards the global GDP. And simply stated, China accounted for 29%, India accounted for 22.4%. Now this 22.4% is important for the examination, because examiner normally they ask this number only, that in 1600 AD what was the contribution of India when we talk about the global GDP contribution. So it was what, 22.4%, and whether it rose or it was lower in 1700. So definitely in 1700 AD we will see an increase in this number, and from 22.4% it will jump to 24.4%. So India's GDP will be growing in between 1600 AD to 1700 AD. But in the same timeline, China's economy will be having a slowdown. By 1820, India's share had fallen to 16.1%, and 1870 it went down to 12.2%, and further after that number will further slow down. It will be lower as compared to the other numbers. Fine. So you must remember the trend. That is the most important thing. And what was the reason? The economic plunder by the Britishers. Here you can see the trend again. For the sake of simplicity, I have included this particular graph so that you will be able to retain most of these numbers. China and India, these are the two important countries when we talk about the Angus Madison database. So basic characteristics of Indian economy. What are the basic characteristics of any economy? Leave aside Indian economy, any economy. First and foremost, you must know that what is the level of income in your country, because ultimately if you want to see a growth, or you can say GDP growth, then you must have a certain income with the public. Only then the production level will rise. So when we talk about the World Bank classification of economies, World Bank has classified according to the per capita income. The total income of a country divided by the total population of that country will give you what? Per capita income. So if the per capita income is $1145 or less than that, then you will be falling under the country will be falling under the low income category. And if it is more than $14,005, you will be falling under the high income country category. India falls somewhere here between 1146 to 4515 US dollars, because the per capita income of our country hovers around 2300 USD. Fine. For upper middle income country, the range is 4516 USD till 14,005 US dollars. Indian economy falls under the category of lower middle income economy. This particular data is highly important. Two types of questions can be asked. One, who publishes this particular categorization? World Bank. And what all numbers are there, and where does India falls in these numbers? Fine. Basic characteristics, some more important points which you need to remember for the examination. First of all, that services sector, you will find the maximum GDP growth. Fine. Right now in India, you will see that one sector which is contributing towards the maximum GDP of our country, it is the services sector, and it generates nearly 44% of the salaries. And when we talk about other numbers which are important to understand the you can say growth story of our country. So first of all, this particular number of GDP, the projections are 6.3 to 6.8% when we talk about 2025-26. This particular data point or infographic is from the Economic Survey 2024-25. So latest data, I would say. Fiscal deficit, it is right now at 5.6%. Food grain production, 332.3 million tons. When we talk about the food grain production in our country, it is rising, I would say. From 2020 till 2024, we have seen the rising trend. Fine, increasing trend is there in food grain production. Next is your capital expenditure, that is the expenditure which is being done by the union government via its capital account. So capital expenditure right now, it is 3.2% of the entire GDP. Industrial production 5.9. The growth rate of industrial production is 5.9%. When we talk about the forex reserves, they stand at 634.6 US dollar. Fine, 634.6 billion US dollars. So these are the numbers which you should remember. But what are the numbers that you must remember? The fiscal deficit you must remember. Then you must remember the GDP growth rate. Along with that, you should remember your capital expenditure. This type of data can be asked because we have unit 19th dedicated to your union budget only. Fine. Next, the factors influencing Indian economy. There are various factors starting from your per capita income. It is on the lower side. You have the rapid population growth. Right now we are sitting at the first position when we talk about the population. High rate of unemployment is there, no jobs. Underemployment, jobs are there but not in your specific domain where you have done your educational qualification. Disguised unemployment, the requirement of 10 people are not there to do a particular job, but still you have employed 10 people and the actual numbers should be 7 only. So those 3 people who are doing the job which are not required at all in that particular job scenario, they will be termed as being disguised unemployed. Excessive reliance on the primary sector. We have maximum population working in the primary sector only, but the GDP numbers will be talking about the services sector only, that the India's growth story, GDP growth story will be written by the services sector. So there is a mismatch. Vicious circle of poverty, very important to understand. If you do not have the specific level of income, fine, that is why you are a poor person. Now, if you are poor, you won't be able to have the level of savings which are necessary to have the investment going. So if you do not have the income, how you will save? If you are not saving, how you will invest? And once you do not invest, then how the assets will be created in your country? The assets are not created in the country. That will lead to what? No capital formation again. And once the capital formation is not there, asset is not forming in the country, you won't be having the job opportunities which must be there so that your income will rise. Again, you will be falling in the poor category and the vicious circle will keep on moving. Next, we have rising unemployment. This has been covered in the third point. So what other developments in Indian economy are essential to know when we talk about the unit number 1? Two things are very important: per capita income and total GDP. So if we see the time frame or the timeline between 1600 AD to 1947, this particular timeline is very important, and in this particular timeline only, India's per capita income rose definitely it was an increase of 12% for India. But shift your focus towards this number. 553% was the growth rate of the per capita income of Britishers. So between this time, India's PCI per capita income rose at 12% and Britishers enjoyed the percentage growth in PCI as 553%. Huge mismatch, I would say. Contrast is there. India's total GDP during 1600 to 1947 increased by 2.4% only, 2.44, 2.4, whatever you want to call. But for Britain, it was 52%. Here you will see 52% rise. So again, huge mismatch is there. These numbers are important for the examination. Now, one home charges, a particular term is given in the book itself. What is this home charges? In order to, overcome or compensate for the economic plunder which Britishers did. So in the name of home charges, the looting was going on. Fine. So they were saying to the international media or the international bodies that we are levying certain home charges on the Indian subjects. And what all was included in the home charges? The dividends to East India Company, interest on the loans raised by the government of India in England. So just try to comprehend this fact that what is the role of India in England. Indian people are paying some things, you can say, I would say large chunk of their salaries or their monies to the Britishers to build something in UK. So that makes no sense. Expenditure on the British Army stationed in India, bringing them to India, nobody asked them to do that. Pensions, annuities, retired British officers. So once a particular individual, a citizen has retired, then the responsibility of that particular nation's government falls for your pensions and annuities. But why Indians were paying for that? Payment of your guaranteed interest to railway companies plus salaries of Secretary of State and entire staff. So you can see that all these were being collected by the Indian subjects in the name of home charges. Question can be asked that which of the following are the component of home charges which the Britishers collected from the Indian subjects. So mark this important. IIBF can ask you this question. Next, in 2020-21, the services sector contributed 60.9%. Now, what is this? Why we are directly jumping towards the sectoral classification? This is known as the structural change. Any basic change which is going on in the economy of your country, if it has shifted drastically, then you will say that structural change has happened. Now, in India, in 1950, you will see that most of the activities, economic activities, revolved around the primary sector and maximum population was employed in that sector only. But slowly, gradually, you will find that a shift has been there and a structural change in Indian economy is noticeable now, that services sector is doing the maximum numbers when we talk about the GDP growth. It contributes maximum to the GDP growth. So share towards GDP, tertiary, then secondary, then primary. That is the trend. For working force, the highest you can say working population is employed in the primary sector, then tertiary, and then secondary. Fine. Services sector drives the industry and the overall economy of our country. That is the you can say perception and actual scenario of the Indian economy. And why the services sectors? The services sector is is contributing most towards the GDP growth thanks to the FDI, the foreign direct investment, which started with the LPG reforms or the economic reforms of 1991. Okay, so now it's your turn to tell me that do you have any doubt, any kind of doubt, and if you do not have any doubt, just tell me the answer to these questions. We have two questions right now. So according to Angus Madison database, which among the following statement is correct? So first statement says GDP share of India in the global GDP has increased between 1600 AD to 1700 AD. We have seen that India's share has risen to approximately 2% between this time period. So this is correct. Fine. GDP share of China and India in global GDP decreased between 1600 to 1700. No, it increased again. So this is a wrong statement. GDP share of India in global GDP decreased between 1600 to 1700 AD. We have already seen in A statement. So this is wrong. GDP share of India in the global GDP risen to 34.4% or 24.4%, right? So it was 24.4%. That is why this is also a wrong statement. Correct answer will be what? Option A. That will be the right answer. Okay, I hope that most of you have given the same answer only, because see, once you are investing some time in a particular session, study session, then you should not have any doubt. Whatever we have discussed here, you must be able to implement that particular concept in your self study as well. Next question, Indian economy is ranked dash in the world in terms of GDP purchasing power parity. So we have just seen that India ranks third only after the USA and China. India will be the country having the highest PPP. So third will be the right answer, option C. Okay. So this was it from my side. If you have any doubt, you can just ask me. And for your information, if you liked the session which we just discussed, which we just conducted, so this was just a part of our you can say syllabus of unit number 1. If you want to cover the entire unit number 1, and subsequently the entire subject of IFS and entire syllabus of the 4 subjects, then I would highly recommend that you should consider the success batch, which we have already launched. 30th of May will be the first class of this, 31st of May will be the first class of your success batch, and you will be getting all the online live classes, recorded format of those live classes, mock tests plus ebooks. So everything will be available to you in your learning portal if you join the success batch. And one thing which you should consider is the time. As a working professional, are you having the sufficient time to give to the self study and then make notes, after that revise them and go for the mock tests and then have your doubts resolved here and there? One-stop solution if you want, definitely you should consider the success batch, because herein you will have the live interaction with the faculties and you can resolve your doubts in you can say real time as well. Fine. So we'll meet in the next video. Till then, goodbye.